Hi, I'm George with NS345. Welcome back. Today I'm ready to do the mix down. I feel the mix is pretty well balanced. I like the color of the mix. I like the EQ of the mix, and I like the dynamics of the mix. I'm gonna pull up some meters right now, and we're gonna look at the levels so you can see how I approach my mix down in terms of what level or what target I like to be at. So I'm gonna do it a couple of ways. I'm gonna bounce the mix, and I'm gonna print the mix into a stereo track. I have my VU meter here, and I'm gonna see where the levels of my mix are.
Baby, you don't need to worry, 'cause my intentions are just bad enough to be good. The situation's too blurry, baby, but I can bet you if you don't, you'll wish you could pick up the phone.
If you notice, the needle in the VU meter is hovering in this area here, and it's peaking right at 0. And I'm pretty happy with that because in the loudest part, the mix is going to be averaging minus 18 dBFS. This is great because now I can get ready to master this mix or send it to a mastering engineer. So now I'm going to go ahead and bounce this mix, and then I'm going to do a couple of A/Bs between the rough mix and the process mix. In Pro Tools, there's a couple of ways you can do this. So I'm going to show you the first way. I'm just going to right click on the master bus, and I'm just going to say bounce monitors 1 and 2, which is the bus that is carrying the audio now. And this is going to bounce it down to a stereo track. So I'm going to call this mix down. And I'm just going to say bounce offline. And I'm going to make sure I leave import after bounce selected. All right, that's bounced. So now I'm going to bring it back into a new track, and I'm just going to say session start. And it's set it there. I'm just going to call this mix down, or relabel it to mix down. And if you remember, I printed a rough before I started. So now I have these tracks. I'm just going to create a quick group on these two tracks. And I'm going to do Command G, and I'm going to say mix down AB. Now I'm going to go over here to my groups. I held Control and I clicked on the left here. Now it's only showing the rough and now the mix down. So what I want to do now is I just want to do a couple of comparisons. If you notice, the waveform is pretty even. So let's just A/B these one at a time. I'm going to change the way my solo mode works. So I'm going to say cancel previous solo. So that way when I hit the S, I can cancel the next one. You see that? So it's easy to hear. So let's hear the mix down. Before I do that, let me bring in my master fader. So just bring that in because that one's got my meters. Just going to bring it down here. And I'm going to bring out the VU meter from Clanhelm. And I'm also going to bring out the, let's bring up the BX meter. Let's see, we'll just put it here for now. Now I'm going to level match them, make sure that one is not louder than the other.
Slow down. Baby, you don't need to worry, 'cause my intentions are just bad.
Okay, so I'm happy with the needle just peaking at 0, and also the RMS meter sometimes just peaking at about minus 18. 0 VU equals minus 18 dBFS. Now let me hear the rough.
Down, baby. If you just slow down, we could just slow down, baby.
Okay, if you notice, the rough is also peaking at about 0, a lot less than the mix down that I did. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to increase the rough just so that the waveform looks a little bit more similar. So I'm just going to do this just a little bit, just to bring it up. Let's see what happens there. Now bring up the BX meter again.
Baby, but I can bet you if you don't, you'll wish you could pick up the phone, call out my name, because you see, I'm a risk worth taking.
Okay, So that's pretty good level match there. So now let's just compare this. Let's just listen to the two different mixes. So I'll start with the mix down. I'm just gonna solo it.
Clap your hands if you want to.
Let's listen to the rough.
Baby, but I can bet you if you don't, you'll wish you could pick up the phone, call out my name because you see I'm a risk worth taking. Baby, slow down and listen now, 'cause I got more than enough of that love you're missing. Slow down.
Okay, so the first thing that comes to my mind is that the mix down has a lot more depth, obviously because it's processed. The rough is a lot more dry. The tone of, like, for example, the kick is very dry, very boxy. So let's just listen to the kick.
Baby, but I can bet you if you don't, you'll wish you could pick up the phone, call out my name because you see I'm a risk worth taking.
Okay, if you notice, I've raised the gain of the rough above the mix down, and you can still hear the low end better on the mix down.
Baby, but I can bet you if you don't, you'll wish you could pick up the phone, call out my name because you see I'm a risk worth taking. Baby, slow down and listen now, 'cause I got more than enough of that love you're missing. Slow down, pay attention. We got nothing but time, so baby, don't say goodbye.
Slow down, baby.
If you just
Slow down.
we could just
Slow down, baby.
baby, slow down.
Slow down.
Anyways, I'll let you be the judge, but really, I'm really happy with this mix, and I feel like there's nothing else that I can do. Yes, I can play with it, and I can reduce the low end, I can increase the top end, I can do all kinds of things. But if I was mixing this song for somebody, I'd be done. This is it. Now, the next video that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna focus on mastering this tune, and I'm gonna bring in some reference tracks so that I can show you how I approach that process. Normally, mastering is better when it's done for a bunch of tracks so that you can set them up to sound like each other. Make sure the EQ, sounds pretty close from song to song and the dynamics. But in this case, because it's just one song, I'm gonna master it, focusing on the level, on the final output level, so that it sounds good in YouTube, so that it sounds good, say, on iTunes, so that it sounds good on SoundCloud. And so I'm going to do that on the next video. But for now, this is it. This is really nothing fancy. And this is the final mix down. So the other thing that you can do is, instead of bouncing the mix down, if you have like Pro Tools 10, you can just print the track. And what you would do is just set up an additional track. And let me show you how I do that real quick. I'll bring in all the tracks again. So I'm going to bring in my master back to where my mix bus is. So I'm going to send the mix bus to my print bus, which is down here. I'm going to make the input of the audio track print. Now I'm going to record enable this and set the input monitor on.
Baby, but I can bet you if you don't, you'll wish.
And the reason why it's clipping is because these other tracks are on. So now this clipping light will go away.
Baby, but I can bet you if you don't.
Okay, so then what you would do is just go to the beginning of the song and just start recording. Where is it at? Right there. So just start recording it.
Clap your hands if you want to. Do you wanna be my
And that's it. And that's basically how that works. You print the mix down, so then you can export it as a stereo track for the mastering engineer. And I'll show you how I do that in the next video. Once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribe to my mailing list so that you too can have a chance at winning a plugin. Come join us at the NS345 Facebook group and ask your questions. Your comments and feedback are much appreciated. Thank you so much and hope that you had a great weekend. Bye-bye.